a newer member. I've been with the Sacramento Tree Foundation board now for 2 years, and I'm pretty excited. I also run our co-chair with Luis Sumpner, the communications and or the community and public relations committee as well, which really is on how do we get engagement with from the board to Sacramento Tree Foundation, but then also how do we leverage all of our network outside of the Sacramento Tree Foundation to have interest in the Sacramento Tree Foundation work and even potentially be donors. So before I continue, I'd like to get a sense of like who's in the room, right? Because I could see everybody's faces and I could read your names, but I want to get a sense from you, kind of your interest in Sacramento Tree Foundation and just kind of who you are. And maybe I'll call them out so it goes smooth. And we'll start off with, is it Ila Sahu?
Yeah, it's Ela.
Ila.
Should I just
Yeah, just share if you want, maybe what brought you to take this class, or if there's something else meaningful to you about working with the Tree Foundation.
well, I joined this class because of interest in environmental sciences and related subjects. So
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you. Sarah?
I think she's finding the mute.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
All right.
if you want to type in the chat, I'll read it out if you want, Sarah.
Perfect. Thank you. How about Katie?
Hi. I am really excited about urban trees. I'm living in Albany, in California, and I volunteer on our city's climate action committee. So I mean, just next week we're going to have a presentation on our urban forestry plan. So taking this course to learn all the many things we can do with climate in our communities and also specifically with trees.
Very cool. April?
Hi. I mostly started taking this course because I was just interested in learning more about climate change in general and what some actionable steps are that I could take to help the situation.
Very cool. Thank you. Dylan?
Similarly to me as well, I took this course because I am relatively new to California. I moved from Texas a couple years ago to Davis, and I wanted to learn a little bit about how California was leading the way in climate actions and how I could get involved in my new small town.
Very cool. And then Pam, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, I think I finally figured it out. I'm not very good with Zoom, but yeah, I was inspired to take the course because of the naturalist course that's related and influenced by April to try it out, and it's been really cool so far just to learn so much about many different topics that I don't normally get quite as much exposure to. So happy to be here.
Very cool. And then Pam, what do you do for STF?
Yeah, so I am our community education manager. So this time of year, in the fall, I am collecting acorns. Let's see if I can make that show up.
Right there. Yeah.
We collect 7 to 10,000 acorns every year that we use for reforestation, and also education. But really all year long, I'm working on running the various education programs at the Tree Foundation. So everything from going into 3rd grade classrooms and talking about the importance of trees, to teaching workshops for adults on how to prune their trees and everything in between.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, little did you all know you guys were going to be presenting on yourselves, right, today.
Right.
Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let me see. I have the presentation just to kind of share a little bit about kind of our agency and who I am, and then also kind of what our agency does and kind of what I bring to the table for the Sacramento Tree Foundation Board. I think that, with Jessica, the executive director, and the chairs of the board, there's a lot of effort to try to get people on the board who are really passionate about trees, who are really passionate about our climate, who are passionate about Sacramento, but then also are able to either leverage their expertise or leverage their network to help influence either elected politicians or to influence CEOs and directors and community leaders to have more interest in trees. And so my perspective comes a little bit different, I think, because my perspective comes a little bit more from the air quality side as a scientist. So I'll touch a little bit on kind of climate management, climate mitigation strategies, and then kind of the role that I play with trees and how that plays and how trees play a role in our community. And so I work for the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District. Not a lot of people know who we are, but I'll kind of get into that a little bit. A little bit about myself. So I'm originally from Salinas, California, and I come from a family of farm workers. My dad was a strawberry picker for many, many years. My mom was worked in a flower nursery. And so that's kind of what I knew. I knew agriculture work, and I didn't really know too much about what I wanted to do. I think I was pretty lucky that I was really, really good in math and not so great in English. So I decided to, pursue math and sciences when I went to DQ University. So the bottom picture is DQ University. And so Dylan, if you go on Road 31 west towards Winters, you'll see an abandoned school out there. And it's called DQ University. It's a university that's in between Davis and Winters. And it was one of the first tribal colleges here in California. And so I went there in 1995, and I was really fortunate that in attending that school, I was the top of my class in math, and I was awarded a NASA scholarship. And so I didn't know what the heck that meant. I didn't know, it's like, oh, great, I'm going to go work for NASA. It's it doesn't really mean that. It just means that you're going to do a bunch of research and it gets submitted to NASA. It's really what it means. But I had to find a mentor, and I found a mentor at UC Davis. And so he was asking me, about my thoughts about research and kind of what I wanted to do. And so I didn't really have an idea. I didn't grow up with people in my family who had gone to school, and I didn't grow up with professors or anybody doing research. So I shared the story with my professor about my family who were agriculture workers. And so he said, well, how about doing some research on pesticide drift and air quality? And so that was kind of the beginning of my interest in air quality. I graduated from Davis. There's a question already. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, do you mind questions in the middle or?
No, go for it.
Okay, well, two questions. One, you said the school is abandoned now. Does your school no longer exist, or did it just move?
The school exists as an empty, school. It's just abandoned now. It lost its accreditation like in 2005 and 2006. Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
And NASA was pretty open-ended for you. You were able to propose any kind of research you wanted.
Yeah, they wanted anything in math and science related or engineering. And so the research I did was in environmental engineering at UC Davis.
Very cool.
Yeah. again, I didn't really know, what type of research to do. So the dean of engineering kind of pointed me in that direction, and I really fell in love with the research. So I did a lot of research in the UC Davis Civil and Environmental Engineering department. And then from there, once I graduated from UC Davis, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And so I went to Sac State to get my credentials in teaching, and I did a TA ship at a junior high and absolutely hated it. I was like, yeah, teaching is not for me. And so I went back to research again, and I did research for the California Air Resources Board for about a year. And what I found at the California Air Resources Board was, so the California Air Resources Board is the state agency that oversees all of our air quality for the state of California. And what I found was that it was very policy driven. And so, you do all this research, and there could be a policy made many years later after all that research is done. And so I really wanted to see direct impact. And I wanted to see, how our communities were being impacted by air quality. So in 2001, I got a job at the Sacramento Air District as a field operations specialist, which was an inspector. So I was like an air policeman, an air cop, and I had a badge, and I had a ticket book and everything, and really enforced the Sacramento Air District rules and regulations. And now I serve as the Director of Transportation and Climate Change at the Sacramento Air District. The bottom right picture is kind of a full circle moment for me, because I represented the Sacramento Air District and also the Sacramento Tree Foundation at the United Nations Climate Action Summits at the Conference of the Parties. So I've gone to the last two COPs, and this is me and an old friend of mine that I ran into there in Cairo, or Sharm el Sheikh. And it was kind of a clash of our worlds, because he was on the community environmental side, and I was on government, environmental side, but there we were together, which was really, really awesome. Another thing I'd like to point out too is I'm also a dance leader here in the Sacramento region. I have an Aztec dance group. And so I come from an indigenous background of the Purepecha people of Michoacan, Mexico. And trees is another thing that is absolutely very critical to our ceremonies. And it's not because we cut down trees and we burn trees and we make fires, but it's because of what trees represent in our ceremonies. A little bit about the Sac Air District and kind of going into that role. There are 35 air districts here in California. And so we represent, or we regulate, all of the air basins in California. We're in the Sacramento Air Basin. Davis is in the Yellow Solano, but we're still in the same Sacramento regional air basin. So even though we have different counties within the Northern California region, we're all under the same Sacramento Federal Air Basin. Sarah, is that another question? The same one, okay. And so we exist really to regulate federal and state law and enforce laws and air quality regulations. And we really mostly enforce businesses, or what we call stationary sources, that cause air pollution. We do not enforce anything mobile, so nothing coming out of your vehicle tailpipes, nothing coming out of locomotives or even airplanes. Our regulatory authority in the Sacramento region includes the city of Sacramento, Citrus Heights, Elk Grove, Folsom, Galt, Ileton, Rancho Cordova, and the unincorporated areas of Sacramento County. And those are also the members that make up our 14-member board of directors as well. We really have three divisions that operate out of the Sacramento Air District. We have the Monitoring, Planning, and Rules Division. We have the Engineering and Compliance Division, and we have Transportation and Climate Change Division, which I oversee. The Monitoring, Planning, and Rules Division really oversees or responsible for measuring our ozone, particulate matter, both PM 2.5 and PM 10 and other particulates. It's responsible for developing rules that comply with federal and state law. So as federal and state law continuously change, this division continuously updates our rules and regulations and informs our businesses about the stringent rules or more stringent rules. I don't think there's ever a time where the rules get more lax, but they get more stringent, right? As we try to clean up our air. The engineering and compliance division regulates and permits stationary sources of air pollution. Like I mentioned, all businesses, so anything from huge boilers to backup generators to dry cleaning operations, gas stations, concrete batch plants, and many other types of sources. Those guys are the ones that have the badges, and they're the air cops. And so I oversee the Transportation and Climate Change Division, which is made up of two different sections, the transportation section and the land use section. I'll focus a little bit first on the transportation section, which really is anything mobile. So earlier I mentioned that the Sacramento Air District has no regulatory authority over any mobile sources. So rather than a ticket book, we have a checkbook. So I think all of you have heard of the carrot and the stick approach. The enforcement side of the agency is more of the stick approach, where they have a ticket book, they write up folks for violating rules and regulations, and they give them hefty fines and penalties. On the other side, which is what the transportation and climate change side does, is we provide incentives so that participants or fleets or companies can replace vehicles that are maybe older and dirtier with cleaner, newer, zero-emission vehicles. We provide incentives for EV charging and also for anything alternative, any type of alternative fuels. So anything alternative to gasoline and diesel. So here's like a hydrogen station. We'll also do propane in some rural areas, like in Galt, or even natural gas as well. This is really to support a lot of our vehicles that are newer and cleaner now. We provide up to about 65% of the total cost of the construction of any of these type of fueling facilities. So it's a lot of money. A hydrogen facility could be somewhere around $10 million, and so we'll provide up to about 60-65% on that. Really, this is kind of the bulk of what we do. We provide incentives for all kinds of medium duty and heavy duty equipment, from agriculture tractors to medium duty box vehicles, kind of like those Amazon vans, and for big rigs as well. Some of you may have seen our latest kind of our flagship, which is our Tesla big rigs that have been partnered up with Pepsi. And so we have 21 of those trucks running around in our region. We also have electrified the Sacramento County's public library bookmobile as well. And we've cleaned up thousands and thousands of off-road equipment, like either heavy duty construction equipment or agriculture tractors. And many of those still are not in the zero emission technology step. We're still getting from old dirty diesel to newer, cleaner diesel because the technology there has not advanced as much. That's still more work to come. Some of our current projects that we have that we kind of highlight in the region is we have up to 5 Sierra Northern hydrogen locomotive switchers that we're working on right now. And this is all happening in West Sacramento at the port. So basically what they're doing is we're taking out the old locomotive engine and we're swapping them out for hydrogen fuel cell engines. And really it's kind of a pilot project. We want to test this theory out to see if we can do this with the switcher locomotive, then we can do this with long haul rail and other type of locomotive. And so we really want to see it be successful. As a part of that, I mentioned earlier the hydrogen stations. Here in Sacramento, we have only one hydrogen fueling station, which is located in West Sacramento. So we are in the process of really creating more capacity in the Sacramento region. Sacramento does not produce hydrogen for fuel. All of the fuel that's produced, all of the hydrogen fuel that's produced here in Sacramento is exported out to other areas of the state and the country, which kind of doesn't make any sense because we produce hydrogen here in Sacramento, but we export it all out. So we're in the process of bringing hydrogen producers here in the region so that we can have more fueling capacity here. We're also working with other big rig companies like Watt EV, and then actually from where I'm from here right now at the airport, across the freeway on 5, we're planning on putting a large truck charging plaza that will serve as a truck stop, but also a plaza for big rigs going up down Highway 5. And so, as you can imagine, that's a lot of electricity. So we are working with our partner SMUD to ensure that we have enough grid capacity to be able to charge all those big rigs. All of these projects we fund probably about 50 to 65% of the total project cost. And the Sacramento Art District, we operate of about $30 to $40 million is my portfolio of incentive budget every single year. So it's a massive portfolio. It's a large budget, and not a lot of people know. And it's something that I think we're trying to do better about. We also help community members with incentives. We have two projects. We have the zero emission mobility hubs. We have one in the Del Paso area, and this is kind of a parking lot with charging stations. And there's car share, which is it used to be a free, like a library of vehicles that people would be able to use. Many of you are familiar with like Zipcar and Gig. And so this is actually called Car Shares, the brand that we chose, and it's $4 an hour. And so here at this site, we have fast charging for community members. We have car share. We have the car share program, but we also have vans as well, because we also understand that not everybody can drive, and so it's community members are able to rent a van and give other community members a ride to doctor's appointments or anywhere where they might need. We also partnered up with an organization there called Green Tech, and Green Tech has an electric shuttle also that we help them get, and they provide shuttle services there to a lot of the community organizations like Mutual Assistance Network, Brother to Brother, the Greater Sacramento Urban League, and many others. Go ahead, April.
Are those vans designed so that people who use wheelchairs can ride in them?
Yes, the vans are, and so is the shuttle. All of the access, well, the accessibility is something that's very important to our community members, and so we ensure that the vans and the shuttles all have wheelchair accessibility. We also have a program called Clean Cars for All, and this is for community members anywhere in Sacramento County who can they have to meet an income eligibility, but they can apply for the Clean Cars for All program, and they can surrender a vehicle that's 15 years or older and get into a new or used or even lease a plug-in hybrid or all zero emission vehicle. And we provide up to $12,000 as an incentive, and the $12,000 works as a down at the dealership. So it's cash on the hood, and then that's also stackable with any federal or state taxes or other incentives as well. We also give a $2,000 credit voucher that we work with SMUD on, and the credit voucher is for charging. So if there's a participant who lives in an apartment complex and the apartment complex doesn't have a charging station or EV charging, then the $2,000 credit can be used it's like a credit card or like a phone app. And so then they're able to access charging at any of the public chargers in Sacramento area. So we're constantly working with our regional partners to help them achieve their goals, but to also be able to clean up the region's air quality. We work with the County of Sacramento, like Kiefer Landfill. We work with Sacramento Regional Transit to help their transition to zero emission. We just recently partnered with them and won a $78 million grant to convert their buses into hydrogen and to put out a hydrogen fueling station at their bus maintenance facility. So it's something that we're really, really proud of, and we continuously work with our partners. We are together working with SMUD on their zero carbon goal, and how does SMUD get to zero carbon by 2030. And we know that as we move into zero emission technology, that the stress and the pressure and the demands for SMUD is going to get greater. So we're working with them as a way to use potentially hydrogen as a way for grid resiliency as well. April, was that another question?
Yeah. Has the decline in ridership over the last 4 years due to the pandemic influenced any of the work you're doing with public transit agencies?
There's two things with that. One, not so much the decline in public transportation rides, but more the mandates that the governor has put for fleets. So SAC Regional Transit is under a California mandate now that they must convert their vehicles to zero emission and begin transition. So that's one pathway. That's kind of the stick approach, right? But what we've seen with the COVID and the pandemic and the decline in ridership is that there is a little bit of a bounce back of people who are commuting in single passenger vehicles for the folks that are coming back to the office. Right now, the governor's mandate is up to 2 days in the office. However, not all of the state organizations and agencies are practicing the 2-day in the office. It all varies. It's all across the board right now. One of the things that we did see, though, that was a massive spike during our COVID years was delivery of packages. So even though we weren't going to work every day and commuting, we were ordering like, a whole bunch of stuff. And so there's a big uptake, and more of those box vans that are now traveling in our communities. And that uptick hasn't gone down, it stayed steady. So we thought that when people were going to go back to work, or when things were going to be open, that would decline, and it really didn't. Consumerism is at its high with online shopping, and it stayed pretty steady. So it really means that it's a little bit of a culture shift that's happened, and something that we need to be also reflective on when we're on Amazon and when we're doing our online purchasing as well. I'll talk a little bit about our land use. Our land use section is comprised of land use planners, city planners, and urban planners. And they're responsible for CEQA review, which is the California Environmental Quality Act review, construction mitigation, and climate action. And this happens, for instance, when a large developer comes to Sacramento or within Sacramento and says, we want to build Crocker Village, or we want to build a new development in the Sacramento area. And so our land use planners do make two types of assessments. One is, what are the immediate emissions that are going to be caused by this construction of this development? And that's assessed. And then we have to review that and then determine whether we need to do construction mitigation for that, which means that maybe they have to have some zero emission vehicles to offset their dirty equipment, or they got to do better with their emissions and their equipment. So that's one side of it. The other side of the CEQA review means, for the length and perpetuity of this development, 30 years or more, what is that vehicle miles traveled, the congestion and the vehicle pollution going to create now in this new development? And so we also take the long-term impacts into account as well. So land use is kind of is really addressed in three different layers. We have a federal layer, we have a state layer, and then we have a local layer. And so I just got back actually from Washington, D.C., and I was advocating in Washington, D.C. about our needs here in Sacramento as we tackle climate change. The Sacramento Air District recently joined together with 7 different counties and jurisdictions to put together this Capital Region Climate Priorities Plan. And so this is kind of like a climate action plan for the 7 jurisdictions, for the 7 counties. And we all agreed on what type of measures we needed to take here in the Sacramento region, understanding that we have a mountainous area, understanding that we have rural areas, understanding that we have urban areas and suburban areas, and determined 3 different categories that we all agreed upon that had 24 different measures that would be impacted. So the 3 different categories are how to address the natural and working lands. So like, for instance, carbon and carbon sequestration and maintaining farmland, which is important to the Sacramento region. How do we address our transportation? Because as our region is growing, people are moving from the Silicon Valley, people are moving from the San Joaquin Valley up to Sacramento. And then how do we address our current built environment? We have older, aging infrastructure that needs to be updated so that we can do better with infill, and we can have projects maybe like in the urban core that are maybe the total amount requested was $93 million, and we did not get any of it. And so I was just back from DC trying to understand why we didn't get anything. And so, you know, again, advocating and trying to make our pitch as to why this funding is important for our region. Climate is something very new at the federal level. It depends on administration. So in the previous administration, in the Trump years, there was no funding This is what I share with folks in Washington, D.C., and I like to share this out loud with everybody. Here in Sacramento, we're very innovative. We are ahead of our time, and I speak all over the nation on the great work that we do and our partners do here in the Sacramento. And it slices 2 ways. One, we get to showcase to the rest of the nation how awesome we are and the type of work that we do. On the other side, when it comes to funding, they award funds to areas that are more polluted or not as advanced, so they can catch up. So, you know, I just came back from Washington, D.C., and I basically said, you're penalizing us for being innovative, for being creative, and for doing the work that we do. And so, so it's really unfair. And so reconsider and rethink about how you're going to help us to be innovative and to maintain. I see some of the questions, or I'm sorry, the comments. I can't read them because I'm on my laptop, but I don't know if they're questions or just comments.
Oh, I'll jump in, Jaime. There was some issue with the audio, and it cut out for a few of the points you're making, but it's been clear for the last couple of minutes. So if it happens again, I'll pop in and interrupt you and let you know, but we got you now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys should have waved like, so.
Oh, I mean, it was brief. And so it just, we're making sure it wasn't just one person experiencing it, but you're great
All
now.
right. All right, okay. Apologies for that. Yeah, sorry, it's the issue of working out on my laptop and on my multiple screens. But so anyways, one of the tools that we showcased there in Washington, D.C. was this GHG handbook in the Cali mod. And the Sacramento team really outdid themselves. We helped with a lot of the updates and helped create this program called the Cali mod, which is really a tool that land use planners and developers here in the Sacramento region and in California and in many other states use in order to determine how to make developments better, how to make them more walkable, how to make them more bikeable, how to add urban tree canopies, how to reduce heat pavements. And so really, it's one of the tools that we use here, and we really try to ensure that our land use planners here at our local jurisdictions use. And the way it works is like this. If a developer comes into the region and says, Jaime, we want to build this, huge project, let's say Aggie Square, like most of you guys are aware of, we say, great, you should use their Cali mod tool, and it'll show you all of the different things that you can use to mitigate any type of emissions caused by your construction and by the long term of the project. So they use Cali mod, and they're able to enhance some small areas in their project so that they're not big emitters, or so that their projects could be better for livability, walkability, or bikeability. And so that's kind of what this tool is used for. And these are just some of the different areas that it touches. It touches on CEQA compliance, NEPA compliance. NEPA is the federal CEQA. It's a resiliency tool, so you can have factors like tree canopy in there. It's a health and equity tool, so we also have the Cal Enviro screen and healthy places, so it ties health and health disparities as well. And it's also an outreach tool which helps the user identify what community organizations and what community demographics are within the area that they're developing as well. So I mentioned Aggie Square. And so before I go into that, April, you had a question?
So this goes back to something you'd mentioned earlier about there being like some fluctuations in support depending on who's holding political office. And I'm curious about whether there are groups that you've worked with around like public advocacy or nonprofits that are helping to ensure that projects move forward over the long term despite those changes in political context, like particularly for public transit or complete streets.
Yeah, we work with all of our elected officials, whether they sit on our board of directors or whether they sit in SMUD's board or City of Sacramento's or the counties. And so we constantly leverage their support outside of any political changes. At the federal level, it's much different because with the change of administration, all of the people who represent that administration, the heads of and directors of many of the organizations are also out with the changing administration. So it really depends. And so, part of the conversation while I was in DC was also about, what is this going to look like when, come November, right? And so everybody's just kind of up in the airs. We're not sure. And so we kind of are almost, we kind of have to wait to see kind of what that's going to look like. We do know, though, that climate is a real thing, and that many states now in the US are really starting to address climate. For the first time ever, I was able to speak in Tennessee, not a state I normally go to speak about climate, right? I was able to speak in Virginia also about climate. Again, another state that didn't normally, even said the word climate. So more and more states now are beginning to fulfill climate departments and begin even and start having some of their climate action plans as well. And some of the CPRG funding that we didn't get really was a catalyst for many of those states to begin that climate work as well. So as I was mentioning, the CaliMod tool in UC Davis, Aggie Square, this was one of the projects that came from that tool where the UC Regents provided HEPA portable purifiers or air filters to all of the nearby residents that were going to be impacted by the construction at the Med Center. And so this was a mitigating factor used by CaliMod as part of a mitigating factor. So so the tool really works, and it also gives really practical mitigation type of projects that could be done, and not like buying carbon credits off the market and at the Amazon jungle or anything like that, but real impactful projects that really impact our community. So a little bit about the Sacramento Valley and kind of how we sit on climate. So as many of you know, Sacramento Valley is a valley, and we are at the intersection of all kinds of freeways, the 5, the 99, the 80. And so we really are kind of the biggest impact for us is really the transportation sector. It makes about 65% of our total of our emissions. And so whenever we have any type of wildfire or anything like that, as you could imagine, it all stays there in the valley. And so lucky for us, we're a huge bowl, and that's kind of where all of the wildfires kind of any of the air that blows up from the Bay Area or even down from Oregon area all kind of blows into our valley. This is kind of the cycle that I like to show folks about how we're impacted by climate. As I mentioned, all of the wildfires and the storms, a lot of that climate change is being impacted really by a lot of our greenhouse gases created by vehicle emissions in our transportation sector. It's not so much our heavy industry here in Sacramento. We're not like Los Angeles or the Bay Area where we have lots of oil refineries. We have lots of vehicles and lots of traffic. And that is really the biggest impact on our climate. And so as we could see, the more vehicles that we have, the more it impacts our GHG contribution, and our greenhouse gas contribution then contributes to climate change, and then we get excessive heat. I think I saw on the news that the other day in Sacramento, I was in DC, but here in Sacramento, it was day 55 of over 100 degrees. And so that is super impactful. And a little bit on how kind of the heat works, right? As the days get hotter and hotter, over 100 degrees, you could see kind of in the area where it says right here, +4 Fahrenheit, South Sacramento. It's a little bit on the lighter side, right? Less orange compared to Roseville and Folsom. And so the reason that's happening is because of the lack of tree canopy. It's the lack of tree canopy and lots of parking lots and pavement. So what happens is the heat heats up the pavement, the roads. There's no shade or urban canopy, and it creates this heat impact. And then the wind blows all that heat up into Roseville and Folsom. So some of our board members who maybe weren't very supportive of wanting to fund trees in Sacramento County, all of a sudden are very supportive now, because maybe they're board members who represent Roseville or Folsom, and they're saying, wait a minute, so the impact is happening in South Sacramento, but the effects are impacting us in Roseville and Folsom. And that's how the heat island impact works. We recently just won an award for this really cool tool down at the bottom. It's called the MARTI, and it measures localized temperature at the micro level. And so now we know that we have a larger kind of meteorological data, which is kind of where we get this heat map, But now we'll be able to go into communities and measure what the impact really is. And from that, then we'll be able to take action as well. As many of you know, because of your interest in trees, tree canopy is something that is a key to the urban heat impact and also pavers. And as you can see, there's how it works. And so anyway, so these are just some mitigation effects already mentioned throughout the presentation, you know, moving into zero emission transportation, streetscaping and tree canopies, and then planting trees. And so that's really it. Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, so can you explain one more time about the urban heat island map? Because I'm trying to wrap my brain around it, and I bet there are other people are too. Because I think about canopy inequity and the benefits of the urban forests every day. And I know that, you know, the highest canopy is probably in Midtown at like 30 to 40% coverage, right? And in South Sacramento, parts of it are, you know, 10%. But that's really not that different than what it is in Folsom and Roseville. And so what is exactly what is causing the
What's the
impacts
phenomena
to,
here? Yeah. So in the area that's circled, that's the area that's baking, right? And the reason it's baking is because of all of the asphalt, the parking lots, and the lack of tree canopy. Okay. So you do have kind of land park there in those areas, right? But this is really reflective of South Sacramento, right? Franklin Road, Stockton Boulevard, all of those, right? Which don't have a lot of tree canopy. So what happens is that area bakes, and so the heat intensifies. And with the delta winds, that heat gets transferred on over to the Folsom and Roseville and North Highland areas. So the heat is really not created in Roseville and Folsom and the North Highland areas. They have plenty of tree canopy that prevents their communities from heating up, but this is heat transfer that's occurring. So that's kind of the phenomena behind the urban heat island impact. So it's very different from direct heat impact from lack of tree canopy.
Okay, so just the delta winds are a huge factor in
Yeah.
kind of moving that out. Yeah, interesting. Okay, thank you. I
Mhm.
appreciate that.
Sure. So anyway, so that's the end of the presentation. I'll stop sharing, see if there's any questions or anything. And April,
Yeah, got a lot of questions.
go ahead.
I'm curious about what's happening with like electric bicycles, if there are any incentive programs around that, because I see them as being a lot more affordable and accessible to people who can't afford electric vehicles.
Yeah, no, the Clean Cars for All program that I mentioned earlier also provides an incentives for families for $7,500 if they participate. And that could be for electric bicycles for all of their family, you know, 2 or 3 different bikes. It's not just for one bike. The state of California Air Resources Board is also putting out a pilot program, and we're working with them and SABA. That's a Sacramento Area Bicycle Advocates. And so they will be putting out a program, I believe, in the next few months, I'm hoping, but it'll be run through SABA as well. And so I'm not sure when that program will kick off, but there are incentives for electric bicycles now. And something that I didn't even know earlier too, they make all kinds of electric bikes. So not only just like commuter bikes, but they make beach cruiser bikes and lowrider bikes, which was very cool. I didn't know those type of bikes existed that are also electric.
I was wondering, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can go, Sarah. I was gonna do a different topic.
Me too, feel free.
Okay. Well, mine was more of a basic question, but yeah, thank you for your presentation again, Jaime. And I'm new to the term air basins. Can you just describe what those are? Is that like a legal term or is that like an ecological uh basin?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a phenomena too. So so for instance, you're in Yolo County and I'm in Sacramento County. And then there's Roseville is in Placer County, and then we have Placerville in El Dorado County. And so the air basin is the Sacramento uh, regional basin. And it covers all of that area. So even though each county is designated kind of with their boundaries, the air basin goes beyond the counties. However, as the Sacramento Air District, we only oversee and regulate the Sacramento County area, only the jurisdiction. But I'm responsible, or our agency is responsible for the entire air basin with our air district partners from Yellow Solano, Placer County, and El Dorado.
Okay, so I was wondering if you could share what it's like to take a trip to DC. Are you talking to lobbyists or who do you meet with?
So I meet with either directors of different agencies. So the director of transportation from the Department of Transportation. This trip was an advocacy trip with all of the air directors from all of the US. And they're called the National Clean Air Associations Agency. And so we're really trying to rally behind, don't take our funding away. There's lots of work to do in the nation, and then really trying to showcase and share with each other as well, kind of some of the projects. So I shared about the Calumet project and said, you know, all of you states need to use this because it'll help you build better communities. And then some of them will say, that's a great idea, but our state will never go for it because we're just not there yet, right? And so, so it works kind of two ways. So some hardly ever with any type of lobbyist or anything. It's mostly with directors or agency representatives or members of Congress as well.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Well, I have a couple more questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
How does the Sacramento Air District get a lot of its funding? Because it seems like one of the coolest things that you do is give away money to amazing projects.
So there's a couple of
So
things that happen.
how does that work, securing that part of your job?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. So I compete with many other agencies for funding. Many federal organizations or state organizations put out different grant opportunities. And so I partner with different, with SACRT, with SACOG, with SMUD, with Sacramento County, with whoever. And we put out, we try to put together really great projects to compete for the funds. That's one way that we try to bring funding into our region. I mentioned the Pepsi Tesla truck project. That was an innovative grant that we won, and so we were able to help partner and leverage funding and bring those funds here to Sacramento. The other funds that we have are DMV registration fees. When you look at your vehicle registration, you'll see a smog abatement fee that's tacked on there for being in Sacramento. And so some of that funding comes to our agency. Because vehicle transportation is the biggest sector of our pollution here in the region, all of us that has vehicles, we pay a little into that so that we can help clean up the air as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of that program with the electric vans that give rides to people who use wheelchairs again?
It's our mobility hub in Del Paso. And it operates, the operator there is Green Tech. Yeah. And we will be putting out, that was the first mobility hub that we put in Sacramento. And we have a goal of 52 hubs in the Sacramento region.
If there was a absolute dream project that you could do that you haven't been able to do, what would that be? Does something come to mind?
Let's see. So if I got your question right, it was if there was a dream project that I wanted to work on, what would that project be?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of working on it already.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've partnered up with a high school called Sava. They're a public charter school off of Power In, and we partnered up with SMUD and some electric vehicle technicians, and we are converting the very first lowrider to all battery electric. And it will be done by the end of this semester, we hope. So we've been working on it for almost a year and a half, and it's one of the very first lowrider conversion projects in the nation. And we were building it with high school kids, which was super cool. And we brought lots of different partners. It was a really big collaboration project. The car is really beautiful. It's a 1964 Chevy Impala, and we'll be showcasing that fairly soon.
Well, interesting. So yeah, getting to connect with that new generation, and yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and it really wasn't about the car or the project. It was really about what the project did to the kids. It really empowered all of the students. It really created community between older lowrider generation to the youngsters and to the EV technicians, which was really, really cool. Yeah.
Well,
Ella?
I was just wondering, you mentioned the bike advocates and they had the same name or acronym as the high school, so it's just
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So the bikes are Saba with a B, and then the high school is Sava with a V like Victor. Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't realize that there was this confusion there. The Sacramento Area Bicycle Advocates, and then Sava is Sacramento Academic Vocational Academy. I gave a lot of info. So yeah, feel free to ask whatever questions you guys want.
I have a question about the incentives that go directly to individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a hard time, making sure people know about them, or are they super popular and they fill up right away?
We have a hard time letting people know about them. We are a government agency, and we do not do great in advertising a lot of the projects that we have, or even the incentive opportunities that we have. And so we partner up with different organizations to try to be champions for us, so that they can share more of the information for us. It's as all of you know, right? Like if you get the information from federal government, or you get a mailer, or you get something like that, you're not going to pay attention to it. You're just going to throw it away. But if your relatives tell you about it, if your church group tells you about it, or some community organization that you work with tells you about it, then that you're a little more likely to pay attention to it. And so we really partner up with a lot of our community organizations to provide that type of information to the community.
Thank you.
All right, well, it seems like maybe we reached the end of our questions. Now, I don't see any hands going up. Okay.
Just want to say
Oh, yeah,
thank you.
please.
That was a super, super great presentation. Best one from the airport. Appreciate you taking your time to talk to us.
I want to
No,
know
no
if we're
problem.
going to see the EV lowrider in the mission. Is someone going to drive it around to different shows?
So tomorrow, Friday, I go to San Francisco, and I'm presenting in San Bruno on the EV Lowrider and to the Mission District Lowrider Council as well, because we definitely want to showcase it in the mission, right? There's a movie called La Misión, and it's one of the first movies that it actually talked about lowriders being alternative fuels. There's a joke in there. One of the guys is working on the car, and the buddy comes up into the garage and he says, "What is that? I smell like French fries." And then he says, "Oh yeah," the mechanic says, "Oh yeah, it's biodiesel," right? And so that was part of the reason why we wanted to kind of showcase it over there in the mission, is to kind of make that really happen down there and to challenge them to say, like, look, we did one, maybe you guys can do another. So
I love it.
yeah,
That's so
I,
great.
I I put my email in the chat. That way, all of you have access to me. Feel free to whenever you want. You could ask me any questions, or if you're ever in Sacramento and you want to go take a look at our office, which is not much to see because we're still not all fully all the way. Everybody's not in the office all the time, but um, I'd be happy to chat with you and or even to any of our planners or scientists or engineers or anything like that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was really engaging and interesting presentation. I'm very happy that you were here. All right.
No, thank you.
Well,
And thank you all.
great. Thank you so much. Have a good evening and a good drive home.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.